Hello everyone. Listen, we're getting closer and closer to a kitchen table. It's an end of day one kitchen table. David, it is nearly.
Stop rubbing the table like that.
But it's a nice table. It's a lovely shape and it's a lovely, lovely form, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, end of day one kitchen table. I really think it's an opportune moment really to discuss what we've learned today.
Hang on a sec.
No, you're all right, mate. You're all right. You got a little bit of froth. Just
Right,
a
I'll
little
get
bit
rid
of
of
froth.
that.
Just a little bit of coffee at the sides of the mouth.
I don't actually believe you.
You don't anymore. No, the trust is gone, hasn't it?
That went
Trust has
years ago,
gone.
Colin. A long time ago.
Let's
Long
talk
time
though.
ago.
Let's talk end of day one.
Yeah.
Is it day one? What do we call it? Is it day one? End of. Yeah, day one.
Technically, maybe it's day two because we had some day one yesterday.
End of day two here.
End of Saturday.
End of Saturday will do nicely. End of Saturday at Rally Estonia, David. I think we can kick off by discussing what we've learned today. I think we learned quite a lot.
Well, apologies for the digital prompting here. I don't have a great memory, so I've written a few notes, but you're much more spontaneous, Cole.
Yeah.
You decided not to make any notes, so what have you learnt today?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is we aren't wearing masks here because we are having a coffee at the kitchen table, and we are in our own little bubble, myself and David. We've been bubbleized together for a very long time, haven't we, David?
Far too long. Far too long. Crack on. What have you learned?
What have we learned? Do you know what? I think the biggest thing we've learned today is that the WRC can work in these difficult times. You know, the guys have done a magnificent job here, the organisers of Rally Estonia, at such short notice. And in terms of COVID awareness and COVID compliance, do you know what? You can't fault them. And we were out and about on the road sections today, and what surprised me more than anything was on the road sections, nearly every man, woman and child was wearing a mask because that's what they were asked to do. It's not commonplace in Estonia to wear masks, but at the rally, everyone was wearing them.
It's not, and I think that's the point that we have to make, you know, that we've come to Estonia, and Estonia has very low numbers, and it has been quite strange for us to walk around in our masks when everybody else isn't, but the rally has been embraced, and clearly the message has gone out. If we want this rally to work, it has to work within these parameters, and the people, I was astonished as well, they have absolutely embraced it. They've understood that it's the only way for them to work, and you're absolutely right, we cannot give enough praise to Irmo Ava and to his team for what they've achieved in, again, we said it before, 63 days. And we spoke to Yves Maton, FIA Rally Director, this evening, and he's the same. You know, he's astonished at the level that they've achieved in terms of a WRC round and the COVID awareness, as you say.
They're the guinea pigs. They've got, you know, normally when you go in as a candidate round, when you go in for your first time into the World Rally Championship, there are templates. There are templates for you to work to. There are standards for you to work to.
These guys have produced the template.
That's exactly my point. They've produced the template. They've set the standards.
Yeah, they have.
My goodness me, they've set high standards.
Not just for a COVID-aware WRC round, for a WRC round.
This is what we haven't even talked about yet. We're praising them to high heaven, rightly so, but we haven't talked about the competition from a competition side, from a sporting side. Today had a bit of everything. It was thrilling, David.
It was, absolutely. I mean, the morning loop was, it was great. Of course it was great because it was WRC and we've waited a long time for it. But it came alive this afternoon, didn't it, with some of those issues. We didn't know about Oit's puncture on the first stage. We weren't sure what had gone on there. He'd lost some time. But, you know, that's one story through the day. You know, have we learned that the Hyundai has cured its ills on fast rallies? Probably. But then equally, Thierry also pointed out they'd always been quite quick in Poland.
But I think they've made a massive step forward.
Yeah,
because
huge.
They were always quite quick in Poland. When was the last time we were in Poland? 2 years ago.
But it was a 17 car. You know, they had a 1-2 in 17.
You know, they have been, it's fair to say, up until this rally, playing second fiddle to Toyota in terms of performance.
Fast rallies, third fiddle.
To the Fords as well.
Yeah.
And that's all changed around. That's all changed around here. And clearly the work that they did during the summer, in particular that development testing in Finland, it's paid off. And what I think...
But you saw that, didn't you? You were there in Finland. But what you saw was, let me finish, was Oit Tanak in a very relaxed frame of mind. He knew, let me finish. He knew fast rallies was where he needed to make a big step and a big advancement with the car, and he did it, and he came out of that second day of the test with a smile on his face, and he was relaxed, and you interpreted that quite correctly.
We weren't allowed to ask them about the development testing, rightly so, you know, there were conditions attached, and we weren't, and so we didn't. But it was so obvious. It was so obvious because Oig's a guy who, when things aren't going his way, he finds it difficult. He would be a terrible poker player. Whereas someone like Ogier can hide it. Someone like in the past Loeb can hide it. Whereas, Oig wears his heart on his sleeve.
I'm not sure he'd be a terrible poker player because even when a rally's going well, you still can't really read much into it.
If he got a bad hand in poker, they'd be straight down on the table and he would
if
be...
he got a bad hand in poker, his face would be exactly the same as if he'd got a winning hand.
But he'd have thrown them away and you knew he'd have,
True.
Anyway, what we knew in Finland nearly best part of 6 weeks ago now was that he was happy and he was contented. And when we interviewed him, we couldn't ask him about how well the car was performing, but the fact that he was smiling gave it all away. We knew they'd made some big steps forward, and they needed to because, they were a long way behind. We saw that today. How long is it since we had a 1-2-3 for Hyundai going into the first service break after the first loop of stages? It's been a while.
It has been a while.
1-2-3 on a stage, it's been a while since that as well. That's progress, and that is big progress.
I wouldn't say that we learned anything about Oit here. We expected to see Tanak at the front, and as people had said before, even if his car wasn't 100% of the Toyota, he would make the difference. And he knows these roads, and he knows the evolution of the road. Blah blah blah. He made that difference. Credit this morning to Thierry. Did a very good job. Difficult, when you look back to where he was 2 weeks ago. Soundly beaten on similar-ish roads. He upped his performance, and for 2 weeks that's probably played on his mind.
He looked second rate.
He
Fair
did.
to say second rate. Is that a little bit harsh?
He did. I think it's a bit harsh because probably in the second half of that event they were putting development bits on the car, and his pace would have been compromised by the testing program. But for sure, to come here and get in the car and do it, he did a great job. We're probably going to skip forward now to driver of the day, which I think probably we're both going to go with the same one. And we have to talk about Craig Breen, because what Craig has done today...
Craig is not my driver of the day, but anyway...
Really?
Don't make assumptions about me, David. He is not. It was the most magnificent performance from him, but he's not my driver of the day.
Oliver Solberg.
He is not my driver of the day either.
All right, I'm not going to try and second guess you anymore. For me, it has to be Craig. He'd done only a limited amount of testing in that car, and the car is radically different, as we've discussed, from where it was in Sweden. To get in there and to be on the pace, in a way, it was...
Breen didn't do a wheel wrong today, and the only reason he's not my driver of the day...
He did go slightly wrong, though.
Did he?
Lunchtime when he was winding you up with his stick.
Yeah, no, he winds me up a lot. But, he's done it before. He's got into that car with very little testing before and gone blindingly fast. We almost expect him to do it now. And really, in some ways, that doesn't detract from the performance, but maybe we're a little blasé to Craig Breen being able to do that. It is a phenomenal thing. These cars require constant driving to build confidence and to build pace. You'd have said it's almost impossible for part-time drivers to compete in the championship these days, but Breen gets into the car whenever he's asked, and he rarely lets you down. He delivers. Now today, I think, he's not just delivered today, he has completely smashed it. He has smashed it out of the park. What he said today is, I am as good as these guys. I can compete against the Toyotas.
He's staked his claim, hasn't he?
He has staked his claim for a seat next year, and there will be a seat at Hyundai next year. And he's not just staked the claim, he has firmly nailed his name onto that seat. Now, it's not to say that seat will be his at the end of the day, but he's nailed his name on it and he said, that's mine.
Really?
He has.
Careful of the table.
Yeah, sorry, it's a lovely table. No, he has.
He has. You always
now
made
making
me
doubt my driver of the day.
No. The one thing that Craig said to us today that is absolutely bang on and tells you a lot about him as a driver is that he made that step, and it was an easy step for him to come from the R5 car because he's used to driving an R5 car on the limit. A lot of seat time in an R5 car. But an R5 car is nervous when it's on the limit because it doesn't have the aero, it doesn't have the centre diff working with you, it doesn't have all of that. He took his ability to take a car that's on the edge, right on the edge, and go to the next level, and then just quite comfortably step up
20, 30 kilometres an hour.
Yeah. And that, for me, that speaks volumes about a driver that is absolutely in the right place right now.
In the right place. In the right place with the right team, with the right team boss, who puts his arm around him when he needs to, gives him a little slap when he needs to as well. You know, and Breen is reacting remarkably well to what's happening within that team. And do you know what? I expect him to be there next year. Whether he will be or not, we'll wait and see. I expect
By the end
him
of
to
this
be
conversation, I expect him to be your driver of the day.
He is not. All right, should we talk about that then?
Go on then.
There's only one driver that you haven't mentioned so far.
Kelly.
Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu.
In fairness, I was sitting...
What a day Katsuta-san has had.
Fair
the
dues.
best day for a Japanese driver for decades. For decades. He's a minute behind, but he is a minute behind after 140 odd kilometres. He's 0.3 of a second or so per kilometre. But not just that, he made a few mistakes. He was full of confidence. He knows he could have gone faster. I'm telling you, we cannot underestimate how important that performance is, not just for Katsuta-san, but for the World Rally Championship.
Yeah,
we
of course.
need Japanese drivers doing well. And if we can have a Japanese driver, potentially, okay, it's a long way off, but if circumstances conspire in his favour, you know, it's not impossible to see him getting a podium at some point in his career. He'll be there, and there'll always be that possibility that he can
in
pick
his
up.
career?
Yeah, you know, I think.
Why couldn't he win a rally? You know, he's very much on the up still.
Fair enough. Who knows how far he can go? Yes.
You know, the thing that was absolutely clear today is watching. He talked of a couple of moments in the first one, and there were a couple of moments, and reasonably big-ish moments. Yeah. But later in the day, watching him in the onboards were sensational. Just, you know, there were what I would have thought would have been a moment, and a couple of sections where it's real commitment, and he was totally there.
Didn't flinch. Absolutely
there. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that actually.
And how good would
I think
it be?
You're wrong. I still think Breen's driver.
You know, I just think when you think
he's
where
a close
he's come
second.
from, close second, and to have a mole man as well. You know, doing so well out there today.
A Burnley mole man.
Burnley mole man. We'll call him a mole man. He's an adopted mole man.
Equally, we shouldn't forget. I mean, Taka does have a lot of experience on fast rallies. He spent a long time in Finland.
Yeah. We saw that when he got that podium in Sweden in WRC2. It was a rally he liked and knew. He knew those conditions well. But that's what you have to do when you're a part-time driver. You make the most of the opportunities that suit you.
Yeah.
And this opportunity suited him, and my God, he made the most of it today.
Should we just before we move on? Should we just make quick mention of Dan Barrett moving to Mull, and just a quick line from our sponsors, Staffatours, Paul McKinnon. We both
Google it, guys. Just Google it. Staffa, S-T-A-F-F-A Tours. A magnificent operation off the west coast of Scotland. Do you know what they saw the other week? They saw orcas.
Oh yeah.
Orcas,
the John Doerr orca, the Hebridean pod of orcas.
Basking sharks.
Yeah, the whole lot.
Anyway,
but you've only got but just we had to say that, a line from our sponsors, because we both quite like those Staffatours jackets.
We do.
Those silvery ones that say big puffin on the back.
To be fair, Staffatours did actually, I think I might have promised Mr. McKinnon a beer and didn't buy him one. He did give me and my kids a wonderful tour.
Did he?
Yeah.
He gave my family and I certainly a tour. If you're watching, Paul, we won't forget that one, will we?
No, we won't forget that one.
We won't.
We've talked really about, we've moved on. We've talked about what we've learned. We've talked about our drivers of the day. We've got to talk about the top three. We have pretty comprehensively talked about Craig Breen's performance. Magnificent. Let's talk about Sebastien Ogier. He had things to deal with today. He had things to deal with.
We didn't pay enough, I don't think we paid enough attention to the evolution of the road first thing, and how much he didn't struggle, but how much he was compromised. You did your brilliant piece first thing, and definitely the road would have cleaned in places. There's no doubt about that. He dealt with that, and then this afternoon, there were punctures. But what got me with Ogier was, we've talked, and it's almost become his pace in Finland in the last 4 or 5 years hasn't been, though, seeing quite big crashes. It's become an Achilles heel. If he'd ever develop an Achilles heel, I would say it was there. And I did really wonder how he would jump back into a car and go at that sort of full speed, particularly because he's at a stage in his career now. He told us he was retiring at the end of this year, and I have no doubt that psychologically that must put an element in your mind that you're thinking, this is the last time I'm going to be doing this. Okay, he's now saying he won't retire until next year. All of that out the window. He got in the car and he was super quick.
But you know what? I also think that he has gone back into M Sport mode this weekend. He's gone into championship winning mode. He really isn't bothered about pushing for the win here. What he is bothered about,
points.
Leader of the championship, strong leader of the championship with a limited number of rounds.
Yeah.
He needs the points. He's gone into that sort of mode, and he managed it brilliantly. He is the absolute arch strategist of the WRC. And I did ask him, when you saw Neuville at the side of the road, did that change the way you approached the rest of the rally? And he said no. I'm not sure I believed him, because
No, I don't think it would.
But it'd have given him that little bit of extra insurance. Neuville
for sure
was the
it
nearest.
would. But I suspect that he's a driver that has the ability to set his pace at 96.5% and stay there.
Stay there. Which is probably 99% of most other people.
Absolutely, and that wouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's gone down to 96% when he saw Neuville at the side of the road.
But a good day, really strong day from him. Set himself
Superb
up
day.
nicely for exactly the result he needs tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tanak, our rally leader.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've skipped Breen because we talked about him. Tanak, our rally leader, made an interesting comment at the end of the day and said, I have never driven in Estonia on roads like we saw this afternoon. It was, as we've talked about, it's a new word this weekend, the evolution of the road. Have you heard the roads being described as that before? I've not. Everyone seems to be using it this weekend. How the road evolves, the evolution.
Have they? I've not heard that. I thought that was just me.
No. A lot
disappointing.
of people are using that word.
It's better than pollution. I don't like the word pollution.
Do you know who used that a lot and kind of introduced it? It was Chris Meek.
Was it?
Chris Meek, and then, anyway, we're talking about the evolution of the road, we're talking about Tanak. He did have issues this morning. He had that puncture early on, which compromised his push this morning. And he dealt with difficult conditions this afternoon. He's also had to deal, as I put it to him, with the expectations of a nation and the pressure. He has. No. Yes, he has.
No.
What do you mean? What do you mean he's not?
No, he hasn't. Because, Colin, where have you been? I spoke to Tanak last week sometime, and I said to him, how are you dealing with the media? Are you getting journalists knocking on the door, ring? And he said, no. I'm dealing
that's
with
dealing
it.
with it. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And he hasn't
to deal with the expectations.
And his way of dealing with it is essentially shutting the door.
But he's had to deal with it.
Yeah, but that's an easy way to deal with it. You just turn the phone off.
Dealing with it.
Okay. He's dealt with it by turning the phone off. Right. Therefore, it ceases to become a problem. To me, it's not an issue. No. Stop it. For me, he has literally closed that book, dispatched that, and it's not even in his head now.
Perfect way to deal with it.
And that's totally his way of dealing with it. And
really?
But you're right, the way that the road, we've seen a lot of newly built, artificially built roads here, and we've been through this the last 2 or 3 days. Those roads are quite soft, and when you've got a lot of heavy rain coming, it's certainly dug out more than. And you go onto these smaller roads, which they've brought in this year to reduce the average speed. Those roads are going to dig out. Yeah, totally.
But here's the thing that would worry me, and I would be worried if I was both Ogier and Elvin.
Don't be worried, Colin.
No, what I said, David, was I would be worried if I was, and I'm not, so I won't be. But if I was, most unusually today, we saw for all 3 of the Toyota drivers, delaminations, tyre failures, particularly for Robin Perra. Robin Perra would have been just about in the lead had he not had his tyre failure. Yeah. For Elvin Evans, cost him quite a few seconds, I think. In
pretty scary one, that as well.
Big scary one. And Ogier as well, a tyre delamination. Now, for me, that is too much of a coincidence. There is something going on there, maybe with, it's a combination of the drive, the hubs, the tyres.
Could be a batch of tyres.
Could be a batch of tyres, but it would be most unusual to get the same batch for the team. Most unusual. They thought they would have been, shoved around the teams, wouldn't you? To have them all within. I don't know. But for me, it would be at the back of my mind. What's going on here? Is it the way that we're putting extra
the camera
pressure?
on the car or something?
Is it the suspension? Is it the way the suspension is dealing with the hits? Who knows? But most unusual that today.
Absolutely.
You're not prepared to really commit yourself to that.
No, it is very strange, but there are so many parameters in there that we
it's
can't.
Difficult. It's very difficult. But anyway,
it's never stopped you pontificating in the past.
It's what we're here to do. We're here to try and explain. We're here to try and understand.
I think we need to find some more out from Michelin and from.
I'm not criticising Michelin, because what I'm saying
is
it's a combination of things.
We would like to know.
We would like to know very much.
Equally, it could just be a coincidence.
Could be coincidence. It could easily. Coincidence does obviously exist. David, I think it's been a really successful day today. A really successful day. We've seen some magnificent pictures from out in the stages. We've seen some wonderful.
I've still got a few things that we've discussed.
That
we've discovered.
No. Go on quickly.
What we've discovered is that you're not very good at forecasting the weather. You promised some rain today, and it only arrived just.
I promised some rain today.
Another thing we've discovered today
Oh, I got bitten, had a huge bite.
Estonia does have an issue with mosquitoes.
I'm not sure
an
it was a
issue.
mosquito, it was because I didn't feel it nipping.
Was it
just
snake?
burned. It might have been.
Leptons,
Doesn't have
some of
snakes.
that
We
long
discovered
grass.
that as well. Go on, what
No, it
else have we
doesn't.
discovered?
That's about it.
That's it. Okay, well listen, we've been on a voyage of discovery today, and it's been a magnificent voyage here in Estonia.
Should we talk quickly about tomorrow?
No, we've got 85 kilometres to come tomorrow. We've got 6 stages. We have.
So you're going to talk about tomorrow?
Exactly. Well, you said we. It's me that's talking about it.
All right.
We have quite a day ahead of us, David.
We do.
Just very quickly.
Yeah.
Your expectations for tomorrow, seeing as you wanted to talk about it.
That Tanak will manage that gap, and it's going to be fascinating to see Ogier's approach. Does he push for second? Does he?
Who's the pressure on tomorrow?
The pressure is on
Breen.
Breen.
The pressure's on Breen because Breen.
But is it?
It has to be. Breen, the only way Tanak can win the championship is to put drivers between himself and Ogier.
Yeah.
And the man there between him and Ogier right now is Breen. And there's massive pressure for Breen to stay there to assist Tanak and clearly.
But he has dealt with that pressure all day today, hasn't he? You know, every time, you know, we've seen Ogier go quicker, and then you think, oh, you know, first stage out this afternoon, saw Ogier go quicker, and I began to think, oh, here we go, he's going to build it.
And then those 2 magnificent stage wins.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Unbelievable.
Folks, we've really enjoyed today. Hopefully you've enjoyed us pontificating on what's going on here at Rally Estonia today. Thank you all very much for joining us at dirtfish.com today. Thank you for joining David, myself, Heikki, the cameraman, sitting behind the camera here at the kitchen table. We'll see you all tomorrow for the concluding day of Rally Estonia.
Yep, can't wait.
See you then.